Hello, and welcome to this special episode of Launchpad, a show that I do through Rocket Fuel, where I talk to members of the Rocket Fuel community. They share their stories and their passions with everyone. So today's episode is very special. We have Thomas G, who is very well known in the community for being one of the biggest whales in the community and also being a very active community member and generous benefactor of things that have happened in the community as well. So, Thomas, would you like to introduce yourself and just talk a little bit about who you are and where you fit into the Rocket Pool community?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. As you said, I'm Thomas G. Sure many of you have seen me poking around in trading and shit posting occasionally. I believe I'm the largest node operator if the new consortium hasn't surpassed me yet. But definitely they have the largest single node in Rocket Pool.
Yeah.
I'm a long-term investor, big fan of the project. I think it's a wonderful vision for the ecosystem. It's got great values. I've been sold on it ever since I came into the community. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much. So I guess it's kind of like an enigma for people, right? Like who you are, because people know Thomas G, the name, they know that you're the biggest node operator, but I don't think many people know much about you as a person and your journey kind of to get you to where you are now. So let's kind of start at the beginning of your crypto journey. What were the first steps? Like, how did you first hear about crypto? And what were your first steps into like the crypto community as a whole?
Yeah, I think I was very like young when I got into this. I wasn't even 18 yet, so I was basically barred from participating in the financial system. Um, and I remember like one of my friends in school came up to me and had heard about Bitcoin. He's like, "Hey, like you can make this money just by like running your computer. It's free money." I'm like, "That sounds stupid," but obviously I'm gonna check it out because that sounds awesome. So I downloaded something or hit a faucet and pulled in some Bitcoin to a local wallet, and basically it was just like recruiting friends. I like recruited another friend from school. It's like, all right, like now we both have like 10 cents. I'm gonna send you money right now. And something about that was like super cool to me, just that like
Yeah.
I'm able to send virtual money point to point.
So what year was that?
This was 2013.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That was early. Yeah. Okay.
And I wish I could say I was in it for like the cryptography and like the cypherpunk, but for me, like just viewing it from like a financial view, like that was just like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It hit like the part of me that is still there, but it was much bigger back then, that was into the libertarian philosophy of it
Mhm.
all. Money without the governments, like even kind of that Bitcoiner thing that's still associated with them now.
Yeah.
That was really cool to me, just that we had this money that was just truly like autonomous and outside of any controls. um I think there were like sites where you could go buy things with Bitcoin. I went like bought some video games from Humble Bundle and got into the mining a bit. I got scammed by Butterfly Labs, which was like an ASIC producer that just like kind of rug pulled and shipped like 6 months late.
Yeah.
So I did some mining for a while. I think I broke even on that. And basically like whatever spare change I had, I was throwing into Bitcoin.
Mm.
Back then it was around $100. So that was
Yeah.
a pretty great starting point for me.
And then were you part of like online communities with Bitcoin as well, or was it just like your personal like around school with your friends at the time?
It was, I mean, I kind of got like a reputation like amongst my friends as the Bitcoin guy.
Mm.
Um, I was participating in like the Bitcoin subreddit. I wasn't super active in Bitcoin talk. Um, I wasn't like a prominent member of the community. I was following the news as a user.
Yeah.
I was pretty active, and then up until like the Bitcoin Cash hard fork, I really actually fell on the other side of it. I was on the big blocker side. I thought The whole point of Bitcoin is it's cheap. I was able to send cents to my friends, and now that's
Yep.
getting expensive. Like we should make it cheaper.
Yeah.
Um, so I basically like doubled down on Bitcoin Cash and swapped all my Bitcoin for BCH
Hmm.
and was like, yeah, this is gonna be the flippening. Like I'm all in. Of course, it never happened, and I kind of grew apart from the community. It started. I feel like it didn't really have my values as much. Um, and then of course, like we hit one of those big bear markets, and I kind of just forgot about it. Like I kept my Bitcoin, like I had it sitting in a wallet, like I had my seed phrase written down somewhere, and then just kind of forgot about it for a while.
And did you know about Ethereum at that time? Like, what were your thoughts on Ethereum?
I feel like when Ethereum was coming out, like I was losing interest in the space. And I was late to it. I didn't
Yeah.
really catch on to it for a while. Um, I had like been, you know, studying in school. I ended up like working for startups and was like drawn really into this like startup ecosystem and trying to figure out like how to get involved with all that and raise some money and build something eventually.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I got scammed a few times, like Butterfly Labs, Bitfinex,
Yeah.
even on like some peer-to-peer loans. The space was very fun, but it just kind of started to lose the charm. And for whatever reason, I was late to Ethereum and
So then the
kind
bear
of lost
market
out.
hit 2018,
Yeah,
2019. You were out of crypto completely at that point. Like you lost, well, you still had crypto, but you'd lost all interest in it. So what,
yeah, I had it like, and yeah, pretty much was. I mean, I was interested, but I wasn't like motivated enough to really dig in and figure out what was going on, where the real value was.
yeah, that makes sense. So what were you doing in those years, like for that period of time when you were not in the crypto scene?
I was working. I got a job at like a friend's startup and was doing uh like some front end dev and then like some electrical work. Just kind of doing all sorts of random little jobs, working at different startups.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I kind of like on the side started getting more into investing, and um, that was really cool for me.
How did that happen? Like what were the things that got you interested in investing?
Well, to be honest, like I mean, we'll get into it later, but I was like trying to plan my life around long term building something big like Aero.
Yeah.
And it's like the way I saw it, it's like to have a successful startup, like you need capital and you
Mhm.
need like the right skills and reputation to grow the right team.
Yeah.
So the idea for me was like, all right, like, you know, if you're gonna copy Elon Musk, like you need your PayPal first. Like go build a software company, like build something, have a win behind you, and then you can go raise money and do the moonshot. So that's kind of like what I was running down. And then yeah, like alongside that, it's like I had my paychecks coming in and it was like, all right, let's put this to work. And started like getting into investing, like uh searching for information anywhere I could find it, Twitter, Reddit, like and it eventually settled on Tesla. And I think I beat the beat the world to the punch just barely on Tesla. And
Yeah.
this was
So when like I guess that's like the story that you've shared on Discord, about how you made like your fortune was on leaps and on trades that you did at that point, right? So like what made you actually get into that Tesla trade? You kind of mentioned Elon Musk. Was he someone that you'd been looking at beforehand and kind of like wanted to emulate his career path, or was it something else about Tesla that intrigued you?
it was I mean I feel like I didn't fall into the Elon cult of personality as much as a lot of Tesla fans do.
Yeah.
I think he's a great CEO. I think he's a human just like all of us and has many faults.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I basically dug into it. I had basically looked at their company and it's like, okay, this is 10 startups within another. Like they built a car, but they didn't just build a car, they went and designed a custom hardware chip to put into
Mhm.
their self-driving computer.
battery
And
technology, like
yeah, they've
all of the
like built
stuff.
this battery plant, like they're
Yeah.
building their own seats. They're making robot factories, like all these things that setting them up to like basically rule the world,
Mm-hmm.
where limited resources being like batteries and energy, like they're basically like put in the spot where they can scale infinitely.
Yeah.
And I was like hyper bullish on it. This was in like mid to late 2019.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't consistently posting profits yet. They might have only had like one profitable quarter at that point.
Yeah.
Um, and I look at the leaps, and it's so if I'm looking right now, 2019, October
Just
2019, I bought leaps expiring September 2021.
just before we carry on with that, can you just explain what a leap is?
Yeah, a leap is a call option where it's basically like a leverage trade with the
Mhm.
time expiration. So you're saying you're buying the right to buy a stock at a certain price on a future date.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. So but leaps are like longer term, right? They're not necessarily like 3 months or 6 months down the line. There's the multiple
Right,
years down the line.
right.
Right. So you were buying them
Um,
in 2019 for expiry in 2021.
so basically, at this point, Tesla had to go up 8% over 2 years for my leaps to basically return the amount I put into them.
Yeah. So like
And
how much did you put into them?
I put in like everything I had, like all my remaining Bitcoin money. It was around $50,000 at the time.
Yeah.
And like literally 2 weeks later, they had like their earnings call and like posted a big profit. And like I doubled my money, and I'm like, holy shit, like I could pull this out and buy a Model 3. Like
Yeah.
I almost did.
Can you imagine if you'd done that? Wow. Talk about getting out early. Okay, so the earnings start coming through and you're like, okay, this can be good. And then COVID hits, right? So how did that impact things for you?
I basically just kind of rode the wave through the rest of the 2019. Um whatever reason, I'm like always paranoid, looking into like whatever doomer things I can find on the internet. um I remember in like January or February 2020, I saw a headline somewhere that's like 10% of the world's population is now in lockdown.
Hmm.
And it's like China was like welding people into their homes,
Yeah.
and just doing all these like terrible authoritarian things. And I'm like, wow, this is terrible. I remember I looked at the dashboards like twice a day, where you look at the case numbers doubling every like 2.5 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, like you look at exponential numbers, this looks pretty freaking bad.
Yeah.
And the data was so bad back then because no one was getting tested. The case fatality rate looked like 5% or
Mm-hmm.
10%, not the 0.1% or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. I'm like, okay, I'm buying. I bought a gas mask. Like I'm buying survival gear, planning to like move out into the woods. Um, and then it's like, well, like I should put my money where my heart is, and I basically just bought puts, short term, short positions
Yeah.
on the S&P and the Dow
Yeah. So
index.
that was in May, right? And sorry, not in May. In that was for expiry in May, June. Yeah, lots of May and June 2020 expiries for those puts. So when were you buying those puts?
Let me see if I can find them right now. February, March 2020.
Yeah, oh, I can see you bought it on March 5th. You bought the puts.
Did I put that in the screenshot? Yep,
Yeah, that's
March
in the
5th.
March 5th. Yeah. So I can share this later, but when we go through like when you tell the story on trading, but March 5th, you bought puts at 220, 225, 230, 215, and those are June ones. 215, 220, 225, 225, 225, 225, 230. So you bought a lot
Yeah.
of puts at that point, which you basically timed to perfection pretty much.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was lucky. Like I was in panic mode.
Yeah.
I didn't know how bad this was going to be. Like I thought we were all going to die.
Yeah.
And no one else was talking about it. Like that was just insane to me. So I basically just bought puts all across the board, and was preparing to go like bug out, um, I keep watching the news. Obviously, like it catches on, everyone starts panicking. Um, and there becomes a point, like literally 10 days later, 2 weeks later, where I feel like, okay, like now I'm not like going crazy. Everyone else also panicking just as much as I am.
Yeah, exactly.
If none of us like have any idea, I'm just going to cash out. Like I sold everything I had,
Yeah.
and um, like with some luck, that was basically like within 3 days of where it just did that crazy U-turn and shot back up, which
Yeah.
I did not see coming. I don't think anyone did.
So so
Um,
then what were you still holding your Tesla Leaps at that point, or did you sell those as well?
I had sold those for the
Yeah, for the
for the
puts.
puts.
Yeah. Okay. So you had one great trade with the Tesla Leaps that worked out incredibly well that you sold then and you bought the puts, which were again
Mhm.
like, so these are like once in a lifetime kind of trades that you're like stacking on top of each other, right? Like, so you started with 50 grand going into Tesla. What did you have in hand after these puts worked out for you?
Let's see. I remember it being about a 5x each time.
The 5x
Um,
stacking on top of 5x, stacking on top of 5x.
yeah. So
Yeah.
the original Tesla leaps were actually a bit stronger.
Mm.
The statement's kind of messy. It's hard to like exactly see what's going on. I remember being like 600,000 or 700,000 that were into the puts,
Yeah.
and then I walked away from the puts with like almost 5 million.
Wow. Okay. That's nice. That's a really good trade. So then what happened after that? Did
I
you
just put
just
them
go?
back into Tesla calls.
Oh wow, okay. At the bottom of the market.
I mean, I sat on cash for a bit,
Yeah.
and then like 2 weeks later or a week later, I started loading back up onto the Tesla calls.
Wow. Okay, so that's now a third trade that you put on top of the first two, which obviously was incredible because Tesla had like the most astronomical growth of ever, any car company ever pretty much in that time. So then, okay, so I guess what I want to tie in the question now is like, when did you start getting back into crypto then? And while you had these Tesla calls.
So it was basically right around then in 2020. I wasn't working. Like I was working as like a consultant at the time, and when layoffs hit, like your consultants are obviously the first to go.
Yeah.
But I had this new cash. I didn't really need a salary, so I was kind of just playing around. I bought like some aerospace engineering textbooks and a 3D printer, and my COVID quarantine was just like sitting in an apartment, like 3D printing like gliders and things, and
Wow.
like kind of playing around with these new concepts.
Yeah.
Once things started opening back up, like I had been, hanging out with some new friends. Someone told me, hey, like you really got to check out Ethereum. I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like, well, like, hit up some dApps. Like there's Aave, there's Maker, like go do something.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Um, I bought like 1 ETH, and like, okay, what do I do with this? I went and deposited it into Aave,
Hmm.
and on their front end, when you deposit it, and you can like see your dollar amount, and the interest is ticking up in real time. And that had the same flavor of magic that I felt, and I hadn't felt since the very first time I sent a Bitcoin
Yeah.
transaction. And that was just like, holy shit, we're doing something that normally would require like a week worth of meeting with bankers. And I just did this in 2 clicks on my computer.
Yeah.
That just blew my mind.
So then you're getting back into Ethereum now, and you've got these calls for Tesla. So what happened next in the journey?
How did that shake out? I think I spent like most of the summer of 2020 kind of like just doing a lot of research and getting back into the crypto stuff, slowly rolling the Tesla. And at this point, like I'm not just doing these yellow trades where I'm throwing everything into one trade. Because this is like I recognize that I got like extraordinarily lucky,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to continue to be that lucky.
Mm.
So do the responsible thing, diversify yourself. I eventually bought a house, and then kind of averaged into like some Bitcoin and ETH. Was mostly like 60% Bitcoin, 30% ETH.
Yeah.
And then of course with the way the markets worked, like that ended up being almost entirely ETH.
So like when you got these like a couple of trades and like you went into the low millions now, how was how was like the people that you knew, how were they seeing you differently? Like did they know that you'd done this, or were you keeping it on the DL, or like how was that impacting things for you?
I kept it on the DL for a while, for many months. I bought a Tesla. I did do
Yeah.
that, of course.
Yeah.
That was my first sports purchase. And I felt very good about it. Yeah, then I kept it on the DL for a while. Like I was traveling around, like trying to decide what city I wanted to live in, because it's like I had the luxury of kind of experiencing things.
Yeah.
Um, Eventually like decided I would buy a house. Like, real estate's not going anywhere. Seems like a safe investment.
You also bought
If
that at the
I
bottom.
I did.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like okay, like even if I, lose all my crypto, at least I'll still have a place to live. Like
Yeah.
that's a cool thing to have.
Yeah.
Um so that's kind of what I was doing for a while. What
And then
else?
okay. And then so the when did you decide to like, so this was like the summer of 2020. So what happened in that next period, like from you getting back into Ethereum and then going that next step from, like the low single digit millions to the fortune that you developed over the coming months and years? Like how did that happen?
Yeah, I got a few lucky trades in. I actually bought Cardano like when I was first getting back
Mhm.
into the crypto stuff, the summer of 2020, and ended up being very lucky where it's like held onto it for a few months
Yeah.
and eventually realized, well, this is vaporware. Like this is like a Hoskinson cult of personality. Like
Yeah.
they're not getting users. Ethereum continues to grow. Like I'm just gonna move this over to ETH.
Yeah. So that was like
Um,
in the low single digits, right? Like when at that point, I think Cardano was like what, 3 or 4 cents.
I was buying like between like 8 and 12 cents,
Okay.
and when I sold, it was actually like around $2.
Okay. So that was
Um,
another great like 50, no, like 20x trade that you did there. So
I do, and I'm
nice.
almost like ashamed to admit it because it's like I feel like a little silly for falling for the Cardano trap.
Yeah, I understand.
Um, but like this was a period of time where um, ETH was like way before their actual proof of stake.
Hmm.
So it's like okay, you have one cryptocurrency that has like running proof of stake but no smart contracts, one that has smart contracts but no proof of stake.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, okay, like I guess there's a small chance Cardano could take the lead here. And then of course ETH just gains network effects and keeps building through that DeFi summer, and it's eventually became obvious that Cardano's not going to get there.
So then like you did some good, I guess you did then some good crypto trades. So then when did you like kind of go all in on the ETH ecosystem?
I think by end of 2020, I was mostly all in on ETH. Maybe no, maybe 2021. Yeah, 2021, I guess, is when I like hard committed and basically dumped everything for ETH.
So then
Um,
that was you were all in ETH, right? So then how did you hear about Rocket Pool and what's happening in the Rocket Pool community?
yeah, for a lot of 2020 and 2021, I like started a new company with some friends. We were doing like QR codes for restaurants. It was basically a pure software play. Um, doing like mobile ordering and point of sale stuff. So I wasn't giving a ton of my own attention to the crypto space. Like I was monitoring it, making sure like things were moving along, and I wasn't like in the wrong investment to the best of my ability, but like kind of
Yeah.
just this thing that was happening in the background. Um, and then somewhere in there, I started like digging more into DAOs, and real something just clicked where I'm like, wow, like people are meeting online, building internet native companies, organizations. Some are ERC20 native, some are ERC 721 native. Um, like if we're already moving money online and we're moving like financial systems online, like why don't we move the whole thing online?
Hmm.
10 years from now, like that just seems like the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
Um, and my mental model that was previously, okay, I need to have a big win behind me before I can start like the moonshot company, becomes more, okay, well, I have capital. What if I don't need a big win? What if we just need to start this as a DAO and
Hmm.
build it like that?
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of mulled that over for a while and eventually stepped away from the company I was working on and let my friends continue that. And kind of like started thinking about Aero and just started whiteboarding out concepts and getting into that. Somewhere in the mix, like I had been like following r/ETH finance and seeing Rocket Pool mentioned. A few of my friends, IRL friends, have been mentioning it.
Yeah.
I think I stumbled on like Zero's investment thesis or something
Yeah.
at one point and kind of forgot I read it and bought like a little bit of RPL and joined the Discord and I didn't even say anything. I was just lurking in the shadows for like a week,
Yeah.
like learning more about it. And, maybe I fell victim to some of the moon math where it's like, okay, if like 10% of ETH is all staked into our ETH and no one's actually holding like native ETH except for gas and everything's just happening with like the staked ETH. Even if RPL, like a rocket pool gains like a small minority of the market share, like it's easily 10x from here.
Yep.
And well, that was a pretty memorable night of trading. Like maybe my favorite night on the internet was when I started buying into RPL. Because I think I made my thomasg.eth Twitter account and like I followed like Superfizz and like a few others from the community.
Yeah.
And started just like doing these massive whale moves, market buys basically,
And the people,
swapping.
and then it comes up on the bot on Discord, right? So like if you buy
Yeah,
more than $10,000 worth of RPL or sell it in one move, then the bot brings it up onto trading and everyone can see it. So did that have your name attached to at that point, or was it just an ETH address?
I think I was buying with my ENS,
Oh, okay.
which gets into our scam thing later. This
Yeah.
was a mistake,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was literally coming up as thomasg.eth.
So people
And
must
I
have been freaking out.
remember, yeah, people were freaking out.
Yeah.
Superfizz, like basically screenshotted like his own Twitter saying like Thomas G has like followed you and put it in there, and people were freaking out. I'm like, okay, like I gotta introduce myself.
Yeah.
So I said hi, and everyone starts freaking out. People are like making POAPs of like the whale buying in.
Yeah.
It was just like this, like I'd never seen anything like it. That was the most like insane moment of my life where there's just vibrant online community of wonderful, positive people
Yeah.
that are just embracing me into the community. And that was really special.
So do you know when that was?
That was, I believe, like summer 2021.
So just a little bit before I got in. So I think I was like ETH finance was like kind of my home on the internet at that point. And I came across Zero's thesis as well, which is what piqued my interest in Rocket Pool to begin with. I think so many of us like have that same point, where we can point back to saying, oh, it was Zero's thesis that kind of got us into it, which is really remarkable because we've grown so much as a community since then. But I guess we were in ETH finance at the same time and kind of being exposed to the same kind of things. I didn't buy my RPL until September 2021. So I think you got there a couple of months
That's when I
before I
bought
did.
in. I'm
Oh,
gonna screen
okay.
share this real quick just because it's like such an awesome moment. Superfizz posts this. I'm following him
Yeah.
and I wave and I get
Wait.
all these reactions.
Yeah.
Isn't he the guy buying a ton of RPL? Yes, LOL.
That's so great.
Um, and it was just like wonderful, wonderful adventure from here.
That's amazing. That's really cool. Yeah, so I guess we kind of bought in at the same kind of time. So then I guess you decided to stake, right? Like you were like, I'm just gonna like take it easy now and just kind of live off the passive income. Is that kind of like a transition that happened in your mind, or were you still doing
When I
trades
when I
elsewhere?
made the first investment, I was like, okay, like they're pre-launch. I figured like I would buy in. Everyone would like figure out this project. I figured it would be like Tesla, where I was just barely early, and everyone would like start buying in, and like sometime like shortly after launch, I would sell most of mine.
Yeah.
I was hoping this would be a quick trade.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's like I loved the ethos, like the community was really what won me over. Because that's like, how could I let you guys down?
Yeah.
So I'm like, yes, like of course I'm gonna run so many pools.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just as an investor, like I'm very good at like being high confidence. I'm very bad at like having time horizons figured out,
Yeah.
for better and for worse, where we just kind of crabbed.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, like I'm sitting on this RPL, like I gotta stake it. Like I don't want to lose out on that yield.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm and of course, like at my volume, I can't just market dump and exit. Like
Yeah.
I'm locked in. The only way I can ever exit my RPL position is if there's a long-term steady stream of new node operators.
So when you were you buying over the counter or were you buying on the exchanges? Like, how was that going?
There was another whale that had a bunch of limit orders
Mm.
on like 1 inch or something.
Okay.
So I was basically just buying into those limit orders.
Okay.
And then eventually someone was like, "Hey, like you're eating lots of slippage here. Like go talk to Patricio."
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh, well, yeah, that's a better way of doing it."
That
So
makes sense.
I bought a bunch from him as well.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. So then, um, you became a huge part of the community, right? Like from that early like wave and saying hi, then like you're now a person who everyone in the community pretty much knows. I guess you're the, if you don't count the team's holdings, I think you're the second biggest holder of RPL behind Patricio, somewhere around 1 million RPL now, which is absolutely amazing. Like that's no small feat right there. And you're locked in. Like you can't withdraw your RPL because it's staked and there's no withdrawals. So like how do you feel now about this position where you are in the community? Like how have things changed in the last year when you started staking to where we are now?
It's been fun. Like trading's just been like this awesome source of alpha for other investments and just staying up to date with the space. Um, like I said, like it became very clear that there's no easy way out of this from a trading perspective where um it's a great ethos. Like I bought in for these reasons. Like it was a long-term play and I'm gonna stick with it.
Yeah.
Also, like I'm now viewing everything on an ETH basis. So I've got a bunch of ETH, might as well we'll stake that, set up a mini pool and got it running basically as soon as it was practical for me. And like to the extent I can, like with capital, I'm doing what I can to help out the community.
Yeah.
I like when I have such a big investment, like it becomes in my interest to do certain things that are net positive for all of Rocket Pool, where
Absolutely.
a small investor might not be able to do things like that. But for me, it's like matching the RETH incentives. Like that was such an easy win. Even if like it just boosted our incentives by a few weeks,
Yeah.
like that was kind of like it lit a fire and it got it done.
Yeah.
At least I think it did.
It did. It was
And
great. The graphs
yeah,
that changed after, the incentives went live were absolutely amazing compared to like what came before that. So yeah, that's really cool. That kind of thing I think has been really appreciated by the community as well, like that you have this way that you can give back to the community and the project protocol as a whole, and you've been doing that when you can. So that's really cool.
yeah, I appreciate that the community appreciates it, but
Yeah.
like I'm also just being selfish.
Of
That's
course. Yeah, it's just it's win-win. So like someone was I guess they found out like how much RPL I have, and I don't have anywhere near the extent that almost everyone has. Like I'm very small in terms of my holdings. Well, not small. I've been told by Marceau that I have a sizable amount. So okay, I have a sizable amount of RPL, but I make rocket fuel because I love the community, I love the project, and I want to give it back to the community. So it makes everything better. Do you know what I mean? So that's the way that I can give back to it. So that's kind of selfish from me too. And I'm doing a thing that's really good for the community, I feel, and people get a lot of value out of it. So it's a win for them. And also the fact that, it makes Rocket Pool a better project overall. That's a win for me too, because I'm heavily invested in Rocket Pool. So I totally like it's a different scale completely, but I kind of understand like your
yeah.
motivation
I
there.
mean,
So
I bought in for the tokenomics, but
yeah,
I've been enthusiastically staying here because of the community.
yeah,
The fact that like we have people like you and just like the Rocket Scan website and all the Discord bots, like dashboards, just the pixel painter, like there are just so many things
yeah,
that the community has been putting together.
It's amazing.
Like I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing that without any expectation of returns, which is really great. Like I I personally have had some like RPL donated to me as a way of saying thank you, but I didn't start this with the expectation of me saying, "Oh, I want to get some RPL out of this." Or you know what I'm trying to say? Like it wasn't in that direct way. So I feel that most of the people who are doing work in the community do it without any expectation of direct reward in that sense. So it's a really wonderful place. I think we kind of got ahead of ourselves in the story just a little bit. There's this thing that I want to kind of go back to, and then you're smiling. So let me just share my screen. So this is a tweet thread that you shared in February of this year. And it says, for the past 2 weeks, I've been targeting an extremely thorough social engineering scam that nearly cost me all my ETH. I'm super lucky to have made it through unscathed. Here's the story. So why don't you, do you mind taking a few minutes and just telling us about this story and like what happened and like what you kind of learned along the way?
Yeah. So like quick background to run through Aero. In November of almost a year ago now, like literally a year ago, I basically posted a Zoom thread in like Rocket Pool Trading and like on Twitter, a Zoom link saying, "Hey, like come tomorrow. I've got an idea I'm working on. Would love to pitch it." And it was basically like this very naive early V0 of Aero, and like 50 people showed up. I was not expecting that. It was super weird because like I was sitting there with my camera on, like a bunch of anon accounts sitting there, like not speaking, no cameras. So I'm just like pitching Aero to this void. And obviously like sent the Discord link in the end, and we pulled basically like the early Aero team from Rocket Pool Trading. Like we've got like, our early amazing team literally came straight from Rocket Pool, and I'm super thankful.
That's so great.
And we were kind of building as many startups go. Like it was very slow in the beginning. Trying to just kind of like do some recruitment, like grow the team, find the right people, figure out how we're going to do it. So it was very unstructured back then.
Okay, so then you get the Discord, and then a few months later,
Yes. So
Hackshine
a few
joins.
months later, like we've got these people that are basically just working for free, like out of their belief in the vision.
Yeah,
Um, then this guy Heckshine joins.
yeah.
And he seems like a little weird and extremely enthusiastic for someone who's just like an unpaid contributor. Um, this is funny to like read back through. It's been a while. The guy claims he's working at Ubisoft. He wants to like help out with 3D design. Like perfect. Like would love to work with you. Like we've got like an idea of our project, a product. Like we can put together a cool rendering and do some better recruitment. Yeah, he says he's working at Ubisoft. He even like sends a picture of his Ubisoft mug, which I thought was super weird.
Oh wait, I think
Um,
no, that's not in the thread. But I remember I think you shared that somewhere else and like the connections they had with people. Okay, carry on. Sorry, I've interrupted.
anyway, yeah, he's I scroll back up. I'm kind
Oh,
of
sorry.
like trying to remember what was going on with all this. Yeah, okay, so Hectron joins. He also has a friend that's like connected to Boeing or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Lynn. Um, I'm like, cool, like we're probably a little early, but I'll shoot her an email. Like, I would appreciate the connection.
yeah. Here's Lynn. Yeah.
She's also working on a metaverse project, which I'm never been very sold on like, I guess that was also like real like crazy bull market for NFTs and metaverse. Like,
Yeah. So this was like peak. Well, getting to peak NFT markets, right? Like people in the
yeah,
crypto community at this point knew what it was, but I don't think like the wider world really had quite caught on yet. But we were like trying to see that, like starting to see that this was going to grow really fast. So that was kind of where we were at. So she's doing NFT stuff, and then
yeah. So
yeah,
she's got this like whole Space Falcon NFT thing, and as I do, like I kind of show some interest. Like it doesn't hurt to be interested. She kind of talks about her background with working with like Boeing and Whisk. Whisk is another like eVTOL aircraft manufacturer. So
Okay.
it's, a great connection for us as someone
Yeah.
who's wanting to build like open platforms to share with other manufacturers. So basically we chat for a while. I'm like, hey, like would love to have you as an advisor and check in every now and then. And she tells me about her Space Falcon project. It's some blockchain space thing, like that's cool. I look at the website.
Yeah.
It's like using something called Armstrong wrapped ether.
Hmm.
It has NFTs. It seems like a little bit of moon math.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how all NFTs look. So like whatever. Um, and then like then there's like this 2 week period where Lynn basically like doesn't say anything. I'm working with Heckshine. He's putting out lots of like 3D graphics.
But they're not
Many of
very good,
them
right?
they were like okay. It just like wasn't what we needed, and I was
Yeah.
very confused as to why he was generating so much.
Yeah.
Um, I think they just got a contractor somewhere to do it.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But I get this whole day, like I'm working with them for like 5 hours trying to like get something put together. And then Lynn hits me back up and she's like, hey, like I'm meeting with the some like VP at Whisk, and we'd love to like have you there to like tour the factory and meet them. I'm like,
Mm.
hell yeah, that sounds great. Like we pick a date, like I put on my calendar, I'm like awesome, like this is gonna be cool. I'm gonna fly out to their headquarters and tour their thing.
Yeah.
She puts in like a screenshot of the email, like she's very convincing. I'm a trusting person, like I have no reason to doubt this. They've
Yeah.
been winning my trust, putting in work for 2 weeks now. Like
Mhm.
why would this be a scam?
Yeah.
By the way, our NFT staking project has launched. Like send me your Ethereum address and I'll send you the NFT.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh sure, great. I give her the address to my hot wallet.
And
um
was that like the only wallet you were using at the time, or did you have like a separate cold wallet? Like, what was the situation?
so I had my cold wallet, and I'm now way more secure than I was then,
Of
but
course, of course.
it was my thomasg.eth. Like I had my ENS linked to
Yeah.
my main wallet,
Yeah.
which like very clearly in hindsight was a very, very stupid thing to do. Um, so I'm like, no, send it to this address. It's my hot wallet. It's just sitting on my phone and in my
Yeah.
browser, like, that's where I'm gonna do any NFT stuff.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, like this is gonna be super valuable. Like I want to send it to your cold wallet. Like, can I
Mhm.
send it to Thomas G. ID? And I'm like, yeah, I guess so, whatever. Um,
So that's here. This is where we are in the story now, right? Where she, um, the
Pretty much,
yeah. Okay.
or maybe a little bit above that. Um,
Oh, this is the staking
so
of
yeah, yeah,
NFT.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So she sends, yeah, here's that transaction. Here's where she sends it to me.
Yeah.
And this was sketchy. And I didn't think it was very sketchy because they'd basically been building trust this whole time.
Hmm.
So they send me this NFT. It's this planet looking blob. Um, and I'm supposed to go to this website and stake it.
Yeah.
And on the site, there's like 3 transactions. There's like, a like ERC20 approved transaction for Armstrong wrapped ETH,
Hmm.
a stake transaction, and then like a wrap or claim or something. Um, oh no, maybe there's an approval for the NFT. I don't know how NFTs work.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm like, okay, like I don't really want to figure this out. Like I send the NFT from my main wallet to a second wallet because she's harassing me this whole time. Like stake it. Like how'd it go? Like what's going on?
Hmm.
So I send it to another wallet, like built off of the same private key, so it's equally secure. And I'm like, okay, like I don't have Armstrong wrapped ETH. Like it's stupid that they have this approval call, but like whatever. I approve it. I do their NFT thing. Like cool. Looks like I'm earning yield on it.
Yeah.
So I say, hey, like well, it worked great. And she's like, oh, like actually, like we want to have this on your ENS or something. Like, can you do it on your main wallet? I'll send you another one. I'm like, okay, like getting kind of weird, but whatever. She's getting very pushy. I say, all right, like I'm gonna read through the contracts on Etherscan before I actually do anything. And then I open up the new address where I stick the first NFT. And that's when I realized that the approval wasn't for some Armstrong ETH token, but Aave wrapped ETH.
Yeah,
And
that's
on
right.
my main wallet, like basically all of my ETH is sitting in Aave.
I think at that point
So
it was like nearly $100 million worth or something, right? Like I
yeah,
think,
this was like big time bull market. Like
yeah,
ETH was doing well.
yeah,
Um, and you know, they as soon as I give that approval, they could have just sucked down all that ETH into their own wallet.
yeah.
So like my heart rate is just racing at this point. Like, holy shit, like this has all just been an elaborate scam. Like I've been
Hmm.
targeted by these people that have spent, you know, weeks of their lives literally just like social engineering me.
Yeah.
Um, and I do like I call some friends like, hey, like help me step through this, like make sure I'm not at risk.
Hmm.
Like they're like, no, you're good. Like you did everything right. Um, then I start like digging through the rest of like what happened. Um, and it's like they basically pulled in like 100 ETH from Tornado Cash and were well
Yeah.
funded. They probably got like a graphic design contractor. Um, and people have told me they think it was North Korea.
Yeah. It kind of that seems in line with some of the other hacks we've seen since then, right? But I like the hacks that we've seen since then have all been like, well, maybe there were individuals as well that just we just know about you because I'm in the same community that you're in, but you'd see like bridges get hacked or other all layer ones getting hacked or like protocols and projects getting hacked. But I guess you were a huge target because they saw this vast amount of ETH sitting in the contract in the wallet, and they were just like, we can get this. And as they dug into who you were, then they were like, okay, here's an angle that we can exploit him, right? And I like this takeaways here that you have about like token approvals being dangerous, how the scammers are getting smarter, and we've definitely noticed that with like other big projects and protocols getting scammed and hacked over the last year, and always verify no matter how much you trust. These guys spent 2 weeks targeting. How did now that we're like a good 8-9 months on from that, like what has been the impact of that on your life, like this experience where you came so close to losing everything?
It was scary. I became very paranoid for a while. I still am, but I've calmed down a bit. Like there was part of me, it's like, okay, like someone just spent, you know, like 100 ETH or was funded for 100 ETH to viciously steal from me over the internet. Like, what happens if this is a wrench attack? Like, well, what if someone comes and charges at me with guns? So that freaked me out for a bit. Like I invested into like my own physical security, upgraded my own system for holding my ETH. Um, really kind of got things more situated personally.
Yeah.
Um, and then like obviously I wrote up this thread right after it happened, and it went like crazy viral. And it ended up being a really good thing for Aero. Like we pulled in a lot of great talent from people on that saw that thread and came and read more about Aero.
Yeah, it was like 30,000 likes, right? On something along that kind of point. Like, let me just
Yeah.
27,000 likes, like nearly 4,000 retweets. No, 8,000 retweets, nearly 4,000 quote tweets. Did you get any hate from that? Like,
Oh
what?
yeah.
Yeah, like how was that? Like, you experienced this really difficult thing where you came close to losing so much, and then on top of that, you're getting hate from.
There was just like a lot of terrible like mean comments on Twitter, like, oh, you're a fucking moron. Like you left all this in your public ENS. I'm like, yeah, like I was a moron. Like I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah,
It went on like Hacker News and Reddit, and Hacker News is just extremely hostile towards crypto, I guess. They were like, yeah, suits you right. Like you're running this scam project, like in the crypto space, like you're just pumping and dumping. Like, no, dude, like you haven't even read anything. Like, I don't have a token. Like we're literally like good faith people trying to build things. So there was a lot of hate.
that's a shame.
I just kind of tuned it out and it was fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've gotten your security. Like one of the things that come out of this is like you've increased your security, and I think that's a really important thing for all of us. And like we've seen that in the last few months, right? Like with all these lending services collapsing, services collapsing, centralized exchanges locking people out, services that people were trusting, with like BlockFi and Celsius, like disaster that happened there. And I'm not saying that you would have gotten involved in that stuff, but like with FTX, a lot of people were trusting of that, right? And
Yeah.
taking control of your crypto in a smart way, I think, is massively important. And this is just another way of seeing that the bad stuff that can happen potentially. And yeah, I think it's so important.
It definitely like points out some flaws in the UX of Ethereum and the ecosystem. I'm not like a Solidity wizard, but I'm fairly technical,
Yeah.
and I was pretty much considering, all right, do I want to just like go to some institutional custody and throw this all into Gemini or Coinbase?
Yep.
Um, and it's, I didn't do it because it's not where my values are.
Hmm.
But like self custody is hard. The fact that like I had to like look into Etherscan and like know what was going on, and even like I still kind of had a near miss.
Yep.
Token approvals are kind of like a bad design, I think. um there's just like we have a lot of progress that needs to be made, especially with wallets and just general UX across the space before we
Yeah.
can hit mainstream.
Of course. And I think some of those things are being worked on, right? Like account extraction is being worked on, and like trying to get like social recovery of wallets is already here in a sense, but like it's getting better every day. And I think all of those things, like Vitalik said a few weeks ago, that we're not quite ready for the prime time yet, and like these kind of things show that that's the case, and it might be another cycle, before we are ready for the prime time in the proper way, fully scaled, fully secure for people as well as protocols and stuff, or better security. But I think that's part of why there's still all these gains to be made in crypto, is that you are taking on risk that you wouldn't in any other place, so you get a reward for it in a sense, but the
Yeah.
risk's big.
I
So
mean, victory is not assured. Like it's fun
yeah.
to look at and say, wow, like ETH is going to be at 10K in a year.
Hmm.
But like I love bear markets. I think like, and it's somewhat like a hot take in the space. I think Ethereum is correctly priced. We've built like a lot of really great, financial rails and proof of concepts, but it's all just kind of like recursive, tokens that are valuable because there are other tokens that are valuable.
Hmm.
And there's not that many real world tie-ins. Like I want to be able to go to a bodega and buy a case of beer with DAI over Polygon or over Arbitrum. And until that kind of stuff is possible, we're really just playing games.
I think we will be there. Like one of the things that Vitalik said a couple of years ago was that a transaction on Ethereum should be like a few cents, right? And that's where we
Yeah.
are now with Polygon, with Optimism, with zk Sync, with Arbitrum, like you mentioned. Like we're getting into those like single cent kind of transactions, and the scope for it going even cheaper with like EIP upgrades that are coming in either the next hard fork or the hard fork after that. That will make it a lot more open for a lot more people in the world, and that I think is quite exciting. So I see your point about it being fairly priced right now, but I still think there's scope for it
I'm
to.
optimistic. Like,
Yeah,
don't get me
exactly.
wrong.
Yeah,
I'm not like falling into the crazy bear mentality. Like,
yeah,
I continue to be a very much bullish on ETH.
that makes sense.
Um, but we have a lot to build.
Of
Like,
course, and we shouldn't
it's
rest on where we're at right now. And I think
yeah.
that's the same with Rocket Pool, right? Is like we've still got a lot to build, and we've still got a lot of growth to go, and we got a late start into the market because of just the way the staking got set up. But that's not to say we should give up. And there's Atlas is coming in most likely January, February, and then bigger things ahead of that. I think that should help Rocket Pool too. How do you how do you see Rocket Pool's growth in the next year or so?
Um, I mean, I think we just need to. I mean, I'm excited for Atlas and LEBs. Like, I think that'll be a massive boost. If you like follow my comments in Rocket Pool, it's literally I just come into trading and run like the LSD price
LSD.
command.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen you do that so many times.
It brings me so much pain when I see there's like a massive premium on our ETH. It's like, wow, like this is literally our product. Everyone wants it, and we can't generate enough supply.
Yeah.
So like I hope we can do something that brings in a lot more node operators.
LEBs will let us um, do like increase RE 3 times, right, with LEB 8s. So that's really great. And if we ever get down, if we get down to LEB 4s, which will be when withdrawals are enabled, then that will let us 7x our RE supply, which is absolutely amazing because that will take us up to over 1 million RE, like in the space of 2 protocol upgrades, which I think is absolutely astonishing. So that's stuff that gets me really excited as well. I kind of want to like just as we tie this part of the conversation up, how has your life changed in the last like 3 years? Like, what's different for you now compared to before?
Um, there are like parts of me that kind of like wish I didn't have all the cash. Like when you're scrappy and have nothing but like an apartment and a laptop, like it's really easy to just like grind away and be busy building things.
Yeah.
There's so many more commitments like now that I've built up more things for myself. Um, it's changed a lot. It's also stayed the same in some ways.
What are the ways it stayed
Um,
the same?
I don't know. Like I still like come and hop in Discord and I'm trying to build things. Like I'm lucky I have money to like fund Aero and get us going and have more people on the team. Um, but like having money, like I think I eat better food. That's one of the bigger investments I make. Like
Yeah.
I always buy the good stuff now. I get to travel every now and then, but I find I don't actually like traveling a whole lot unless there's like a good reason for it.
Yeah.
Um, I think the biggest benefit of my life from all of this has really just been like all the friends I've made. Um, it's so, I mean, from Rocket Pool, especially the fact that I've got friends all over the world and people that I'm working with. We had our Aero meetup in Turkey like 2 months ago now, and that was just like so cool. And a lot of those people from Rocket Pool,
Yeah.
that it's like, wow, we've just like manifested this community out of the internet,
Yeah.
and it's happening in the real world, and we're doing stuff. And to me, that's like the metaverse. That's what's so cool about it.
Do you ever
Um,
think that you might be a billionaire in the next bull market? How does that do you ever think about that? Or like how does that ever play on your mind?
we'll see what happens to RPL.
But like if
I'm very overexposed to RPL, to be honest,
of course,
and um, I hope we do well.
what's your plan for selling RPL?
I mean, at my scale, like I'm at 1 million plus RPL. I
Yeah.
can't just dump that on Uniswap.
No.
I like long term, everything I'm doing is to fund Aero.
Yeah.
So like I don't want to sit on RPL for the next 50 years, but um, I would like to see RPL reach like a more steady state where we have just like an incoming stream of new mini pools, new node operators, kind of increasing demand, and
Yeah.
I want to slowly sell into that demand.
Great. That's really cool. I kind of want to go back to something that you said before. So you said during the lockdown, you got a bunch of aerophysics books and a 3D printer. Like, what made you get the aerospace books?
I've always been like kind of an aerospace nerd and wanted
Okay.
to build something that flies.
Yeah.
It just felt like a fun thing to do, and
So was it something that you'd explored before? Like, did you ever have flying lessons or anything, or was it just something that was always like your passion and you were just like, okay, I'm gonna learn everything I can about this now?
yeah, I'd been taking flight lessons. I was actually like really close to getting my license when the lockdown started, which was a big
Mm.
bummer. Um, and I think I had always known that I wanted to build something like Aero, and build something that's um, enabling more connectivity for the world.
So can you take a second and like kind of explain to us what Arrow is and like where the seeds of Arrow came from in your in you and like what you want Arrow to be?
Yeah. Um, the seeds in me are it's like hard to attribute. I've always wanted to like make flying more accessible. I think air travel's like pretty inhumane. Like it's nice that we have it, but the fact that we're shoving a bunch of people in tubes for suboptimal routing between cities, like, and it's the same thing we've been doing for like the past 80 years or 40 years or something. Like, we need to evolve and make the world more connected.
Yeah.
So at a high level, Aero is like a bet that, much like I am and many other people are, working online and living online. If all of your work's online and you're living in the information economy, you're not physically tied to any particular city, you can go live anywhere.
Hmm.
And I love nature, and I think there are many people like me that, given the opportunity, would want to go live somewhere, with more access to nature and beauty around them, and eventually, almost like get all your online friends and move somewhere together, which is what I want to do eventually. Um, and then if you want to enable that world, you need to make transportation a lot cheaper,
Yeah.
and easier. There's like, I read this something once where, like, throughout history, no matter what modes of transit are available, people spend about an hour per day commuting. So if your mode is walking, like, you might have like a 2 mile radius where, you're like going and seeing friends and shops in 2 miles, and once you get bikes, like maybe you grow to 10 miles, and cars obviously grow you much further.
Yeah.
So Aero is working on building, vertical takeoff aircraft,
Yeah.
and we want to make it affordable and accessible to everyone through an air taxi protocol. So the idea being, if you're living in a little village with all your friends and you need to go get a haircut, you can fly 100 miles rather than drive 30 miles. And hopefully it's near the same cost.
Wow. Okay. So, when was the idea of Arrow born in the form that you kind of like explained it now?
That was about a year ago, like with that Zoom call.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I have had iterations on this idea for years before that.
Mm.
But kind of linking it up with this whole like Web3 ethos and information economy, that was like kind of the big revelation that made me quit what I was working on before and really go at it full time.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, what's happened with Arrow over the last year then, since the Zoom call? Like, what's been the chart that you've kind of taken since then?
Yeah, we've brought in like, that Zoom call brought in like a really great kind of original core team, from Rocket Pool. We put together like a website and started recruiting, um, and just kind of like iterating on the idea for a few months. And then earlier this year, after that whole scam Twitter thread brought in, a lot more people, we got more serious and built our first, aircraft, Project Spearhead.
Yeah.
And, it's like 2.5 months ago now. We all met up in Turkey, or at least a lot of us, and assembled it and attempted our first test flight. And it had an unplanned disassembly.
Yeah.
The wing snapped off.
I like that term, unplanned disassembly. It's great. Yeah.
We've grown our team now with another structural engineer who will prevent this from happening in the future.
Wonderful.
I mean, I'm super proud, like, that we actually we got an aircraft built and did something in the real world in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. So, how much of your time are you spending with Arrow now?
Basically all of my time.
Yeah.
I got there's just some amount of time that is like kind of maintenance time that I spend literally lurking Twitter and Rocket Pool Discord and taking care of personal things. I'm trying to shrink that time down as much as I can, and just spend all my time on Aero, because it's just like playing for me. It's fun.
So let like on the Arrow page, on the Arrow Air website, you've got like this roadmap where it says, we're starting a journey with Project Spearhead, a demonstrator aircraft. After that, we'll be working towards real world cargo operations, where we'll improve safety and logistics. We develop our passenger vehicle. So you've got like phases here, right? Like the first phase now is like growing community, iterate core ideas, establish treasury. So that's all done, and build a demonstrator aircraft. So that's the failed attempt that you had in Turkey a couple of months ago. So what is happening for the aircraft demonstrator now? Like, where do you stand, if you can share that information?
So we're kind of like wrapping that up. We want to get it to like a solid test flight so we can have that win. And then we're going to kind of, put that airframe on hold and move to a simpler design. We've grown ourselves to a nice, like, solid team, and we're kind of
Sorry.
just getting serious. And we've got like our two teams. We've got one team that's building hardware, one team that's building a software platform.
Mm-hmm.
And our hardware team is planning on going into next year to build an ultralight. And this is like within the FAA regs. There's if you build an aircraft under a certain weight for one pilot, and it's got all these restrictions that can't be used for anything commercial. But we can go build a multi-rotor drone and sell it with minimal certification and kind of oversight
For carrying people?
for one pilot,
Yeah. Wow.
basically
Okay.
just as a recreational vehicle.
So, like, one of the most dangerous forms of travel is like helicopter, right? Like, you hear stories of like people dying in helicopters all the time. Like, I'm sorry, but like, what kind of stuff are you guys putting into consideration for like safety aspects?
So we're doing things that are for the aerospace industry, like really shocking and weird. And for someone like you and the rest of the community, it will probably sound normal. We're building in public. Everything we're building is open source.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're gonna, like, before we actually start selling it, we're gonna put up like a bug bounty
Mm.
and say, if you can find a fault in our design that would endanger a life, we'll pay you a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So much like protocols like Rocket Pool have bug bounties that make it, assured for investors that nothing's going to get rug pulled. We'll do the same for safety. We're also planning on doing like a ballistic parachute. So if you have a motor failure, you can parachute down. We're very safety focused.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
And then in the meantime, we want to use that airframe for cargo missions.
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of talk about like phase one. What's coming up next is like develop a rideshare protocol, build production cargo aircraft, which is what you just mentioned, find initial market cargo for cargo flights, and certify and begin revenue flights. So let's like focus on this
So
the cargo thing. Yeah.
these phases are almost a little out of date. This
Oh,
website
okay.
is pending a refresh, basically any day now.
Yeah.
And right now we're kind of digging into humanitarian missions.
Oh, great. Okay. So
So it's there's like several barriers to this technology, and one of the big ones is just like this social barrier. People are scared of drones flying over their houses. People don't want loud things that might crash. But if you're flying humanitarian cargo like vaccines and medicine, those social barriers kind of vanish. Like no
yeah,
one's going to complain if you're flying like vital organs or vaccines.
that makes a lot of sense.
And then regulatory, like you also kind of like have those walls shrink, where if you're like doing humanitarian missions, no one's gonna like throw a big fuss. The regulatory walls will be easier to fight. So
That makes
we're kind of reaching out to UNICEF and other NGOs and want to kind of hit like the developing world and use this for good and hit some grants. I'd love to do something with like Gitcoin and raise some money to do that. So we'll have our airframe, we'll flight for cargo, we'll get lots of flight hours on there, and then start selling it for humans. And then we're testing out our whole software platform, or basically our protocol for routing cargo and eventually humans.
wow. That's a
And
really ambitious.
the idea being, like, once we have our MVP happening with this humanitarian cargo, then we can go raise some money and get more serious and start building like our real human commercial vehicles.
How many years do you think this will all take?
How many years? What?
How many years until you have like flying humans, like on a trip to the next town for a haircut?
Well, like, so this ultralight, we could be flying like by the end of next year, very optimistically. Maybe a little bit longer, more realistically. And then to get something that's safe and thoroughly tested and certified for commercial use, it's probably like 5 years out.
Wow, that's really exciting.
It is.
Yeah,
We're building this like a DAO.
yeah.
Like, I've had some people say that I'm more of a company, not a DAO, but we're trying to be as decentralized as possible,
Mm.
push organizations to the smallest level as possible.
Yeah, so that's something that I wanted to ask you. You mentioned Gitcoin grants as well. Like how, okay, so when people think of a company like an aeronautical company, like they don't really think of crypto at the same time, right? But like you are getting a lot of crypto values and a lot of crypto ideas, and you're kind of like infusing it into your company or like your DAO. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these values that you're kind of how that's working for you, and like what are the values that you're holding onto most strongly when you're doing that?
We're internet native. Rather than saying we're a US company and we're going to start an LLC in X state, our team is all over the world. We're a minority in the US. So we're ERC20 native. All of our business logic happens on chain. We have our own contracts. We have a multi-sig. All of our contributors get paid in USDC, and our own token investing contracts, of course.
Yeah.
We're not like profit motivated. We've stated that we're not going to be paying dividends. We want this to be like a public good that we build for everyone. And we want like the infrastructure to be locally owned, much like Rocket Pool. So like if we go in and start like building vertiports, we don't want like us as Aero company owners to be owning all the vertiports and owning all the aircraft and have this whole thing like Amazon's network. We want to go approach like your local town hall and say, hey, we're gonna like give you a grant and help you build this. And you're going to own this Aero vertiport. You're going to own like some Aero tokens, so you have a stake in the whole network, and you're aligned on your incentives with everyone else. And like you just have to do your job to like keep it up and help people use it and make sure it's set up optimally.
Yeah. And
so
sorry, carry on.
Big companies are top down, and DAOs are very much decentralized. So we want things to be locally owned and happening in the most decentralized manner as we can.
Great. And you mentioned that you wanted like town halls to kind of have tokens and stuff. How's that going to work? Like, what are your ideas for a token?
So this is still like kind of being iterated and built out. I don't want to like say something I shouldn't,
Sure.
especially with like securities regulators watching. But we want our governance token to be something that puts everyone on the same team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Well, do you have a token already? I'm sorry, I should have researched that.
We do. It's not publicly available. All the tokens are sitting in vesting contracts with our contributors.
Okay, that's great.
But we have snapshot votes. We have very much a token logic for ourselves.
Okay, so a question I have is the kind of work that Aero is doing sounds really exciting and really great. It seems like it's the kind of thing that would have lots of military applications. Is that something that you like? How does that align with like your vision, your like ethical stances?
I am very anti-militarized vehicles. I think a lot of the industry goes and basically gets a bunch of money from the Department of Defense and starts selling out to the military. We've got stated goals of never like stepping down that path and doing anything weaponized. That being said, everything we do is open source. We're going to do our best to like, keep people from militarizing it, but after a certain point, it's like there's a limit to what we can do.
Of course, yeah.
But it's like we want to at least level the playing field where you don't have like authoritarian regimes that have all the tech and the people have no way to fight back.
That makes sense.
That's a me statement. That's not an Aero statement.
I understand. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. So yeah, Aero, like you've already got it on track for doing all this really cool stuff, and cool stuff is already happening. Like you shared the video of the in like your unplanned disintegration of your previous model, the first iteration, and in trading, right? Like, and people were like kind of happy for you in a sense, but like it's really.
I was happy. I was exhausted. It was really funny timing. Like I was in Turkey for 2 weeks, and my flight leaves at like 4 a.m. and that disintegration happened at like 1 a.m. So it's like it basically happened. I'm like, well, like that sucks. I'm going to the airport. Bye, guys.
Yeah. But that is showing that you're on the path towards something, right? And like that's really exciting. Like you don't like just going back to like what you said about Elon Musk earlier, like the the SpaceX rocket explosions were really, really like out there for everyone to see, and like people were laughing, but then now they're like, oh wow, this is actually a way to get stuff to space. And I think Aero can be something similar, where I know it's much smaller scale, right? Excuse me. Where you shared this video with, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Okay. So you shared this video with the rocket pool community, and people were just like, okay, like this went bad, but better things are going to happen next time. So that's
Yeah,
really
I mean,
good.
that's the beauty of building in public.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Elon, that's one of the things he does well. He's very accessible, and people hate him just because like he's always on Twitter, like sharing things. And obviously, like if you share everything, like eventually, like you're gonna piss off people.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like, are you getting the same level of like openness from other big companies? Like it's just it's kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
And it's a great recruitment tool. If you're an engineer and you can go and like look at our CAD files and see how we built something and offer suggestions, like that's pretty awesome. Um, and we hope to move fast. The
Yeah.
entire aerospace industry, like when I started Aero, like the first thing I did was like go to some conferences. And it's just like felt like the most like old school, like crusty environment ever. Like I was wearing like a nice shirt and I felt underdressed. Like everyone was wearing ties.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps their secrets. Everyone's always like very into like the defense stuff. And people move slow. It's like very like rigorous engineering. Like everything's got to be like reviewed and tested. But nothing blows up usually.
Yeah.
Whereas for us, it's like, yeah, we might like make a few big mistakes. But if we move fast, we'll get there,
So
and we'll be better for it.
what's the state of this industry right now? Like, are there other players involved? Are there other teams that you're competing with? Like, what's
There are a ton of other players.
Mhm.
Like no joke, I think 100 plus startups trying to build aircraft.
Wow.
So that's part of what makes us a DAO. It's we want to think of them as partners and collaborators and invite them to come share in open source repositories and build together. We're open to like doing any like token deals with other manufacturers. If you want to kind of join the Aero network and open source your current designs, we'd love to entertain that. We want to start partnering with other operators for our rideshare protocol and have that be kind of like the open standard that people use for getting around. But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't think these companies will last forever. You don't have 100 different car manufacturers right now. You have like 6, and I think it'll probably end up being something like that.
Yeah. And what are your ideas? Okay, so once in a while you pop into trading and you've got like this idea of like solar stuff or other stuff, that kind of ideas that are going on in your mind. How does do you still get time for like having new ideas, or is everything just an arrow right now?
I have like a personal list of like DAOs that people should build.
Yeah.
And they're all like very optimistic. And I wish I had time to like do them all, but there are so many smart people in the space. The solar one, actually, like I would love to revisit that. The idea was basically you build a stablecoin backed by real world solar. And I know Maker was getting into a lot of this, but Maker's just got so many issues internally. I don't know if they're fit to do it.
Yeah.
But it's basically like a very stable asset. Like you have an upfront cost, you buy the solar farm, it's producing power consistently and selling it on the grid. It seems like it'd be a great thing to do.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see like the ideas that you have next, because it seems like you've got like a really like infectious positivity, and I can like just so I attended your weekly or bi-weekly, I think, call on Monday this week, and people were talking about really cool things, and they were talking about it in a really passionate way, and it seems like you've got this great ability to kind of like motivate your team, and they're stepping up. It seems like they've know what they're doing and they're out there doing it. And I really like the idea that, I listened to on Monday where you were talking about vaccine delivery, and like that's the kind of stuff that you were talking about in the call, for a part of the call. And I think that's something really exciting, that you can focus on these humanitarian missions and also at the same time build this community and tap into communities that are already there. And like, I know that Aero, it was quite public that, Aero put a chunk of their treasury into our ETH, which kind of like deepened the relationship between Aero and Rocket Pool even more. But I think it's really cool that you are building these communities in such a cool way, and like the community that you're part of, kind of building bridges across them. So I'm really excited to see what you come up with next, and what happens next. So that's really cool.
Well, thank you. I mean, as an invite to anyone listening, please feel free to join our Aero community calls. They're on Mondays now. I believe at like 19 UTC. Our Discord is like discord.gg/Aero, I think. Yeah, thank you. We're working hard. We're love to engage with the community and get ideas and thoughts from everyone.
Is there anything that you'd like to share before we wrap this up? Anything that we didn't cover, or that you want to go into a little bit more detail?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't have any like strong asks for Aero. I'm very, very fortunate. We have a great community, great team of motivated people. I think we're going to do like the responsible thing and just focus on being in effective small teams and build for a while and have something cool to show and grow with some more small teams. We're structuring it as pods, so we want to be like a startup of startups. Anytime the team gets too big, kind of split the cell and continue to be in effective small groups. So in time, I hope to grow and bring on as many people as we can.
And
but for now, we're just silently building.
Nice. And the Rocket Pool community is always a place where there's really brilliant people who you can just be like, come on, join that project. So that's really great.
It's amazing. Yeah. I was so grateful that we got like so many great people. Like the very like same week when I came up with the idea, Sleety's like, all right, like I whipped up this this website design. What do you think?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my God, like I was about to hire like a contractor for, $50 an hour to like start doing this, and they weren't going to be anywhere near this good.
Yeah, Sleety's amazing. Like I've got so much love for Sleety. He's such a generous and warm person, and every interaction I've had with him has been absolutely fantastic. So like I've given him shout outs on Rocket Fuel like loads of times, and he's just a great guy. So I know that other people in the team are just as great as well. So that's really awesome to see.
Yeah. He's awesome. They're all awesome.
That's awesome. Okay, so Thomas, thank you so much for taking part in this call and this interview. It's been an absolute pleasure of mine. I know we've been trying to plan it for a while, and I'm really happy that we've actually done it now. But I think something that the community can take away from this is that there's always ways of giving back, right? And always ways of doing things, and you don't need to be like a mega whale. Like there's always ways of, and that's something that I've been trying to promote recently as well, is people giving back to the community and like doing things, and actually just going and doing things. Like you just mentioned, Sleety just went and did the thing, right? And it was so valuable.
And that's the beauty of DAOs and Rocket Pool. It's DAOifying, but like the fact that we're all stakeholders here and we can all put in the work, and make something amazing. Absolutely. Like if it was just the team building this as a company, like they would have built an amazing protocol, but no one would have used it. And the community is what makes Rocket Pool special. And it is like by far like the best community I've been a part of. So I think that's a really great note to end this on. So thank you so much for your time and your insights and sharing your story. And I think the community is really going to love this. So yeah. Awesome. Have a great time.